Greetings again, 506 RELR students. Growing in Christ is a central and important doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We believe that the work of the gospel does not end at the cross. And we will see this and how it is married to the influence of the gospel in the life of the believer through the ministry of Jesus when we study the sanctuary, which is the next doctrine in the distinctive doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But right now, I want you to take a step back. We will use a different approach this time. I want you to do an exercise different in nature. As we think of this doctrine of growing in Christ, I want you to see it through the lens of Ellen G. White. If you go to the White Estate, I can show you. Let me go back here step by step. If you go to the White Estate and you click on online publications, you will see that the Steps to Christ is one of the books that you can see in its entirety for free from the White Estate. Steps to Christ is a particularly important book in Ellen G. White. She first published it outside of Adventism, but in this lecture I'm not going to go into historical issues or epistemology issues. I want you to use a different approach, but just a point of reference. Steps to Christ is the most widely distributed book of Ellen G. White, and it is accepted throughout the world. It has been published in more languages and in more places, and I don't care to talk about statistics. Here, doctrine number 11 of the 28 fundamentals is based on chapter 8 of the Steps to Christ, growing up in Christ. When I say is based, I meant the name. There's a correlation between the two. I did not mean to imply that there's a linear relationship. The point is, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do a search for the word life. And growing up in Christ is about your life. So I want you to do a search of the word life. Let's begin. Life is the center of who we are. Without it, we will not be having this conversation between us, which, by the way, need not be a one-way conversation. Several of my students pick up the phone and call me at 909-382-1912, and they engage me with what they have been reading. And you're able to do it as well. We can also do it in Skype. You can send me an email, and if you're far away, I can call you, or we can set up an appointment. It's a lot easier if you pick up the phone and call me or text me, are you available now? And I call you back. Anyway, when you look at the word life, as you read this chapter, you will find a particular reading that I want you to do. Read chapter 8, reading everywhere where the word life is found. I'm not going to do that now. That would be very boring, but I am showing you the highlights of what I discovered and what I want you to experience. This is a way of reading. It's not the way, it's one way. As with life, so it is with growth, which is the definition of what life is in biology. To be alive, it has to be able to reproduce, it has to be able to grow, and it has to be able to feed. Those are the elements that define life. If it feeds, if it grows, if it procreates, it is alive. The three most basic characteristics. Growing is the whole purpose of feeding. And growing is the whole purpose of our lives. We live in Christ to grow in Him. What does that mean? God has furnished to minister to their life, meaning God is interested in your life in order to help you grow as you are an example in the spectacle of the conflict of the ages, as you show the universe, like Job did, that God's grace is well founded, that the love of God in Jesus bears fruits of people that are loving to Him and to others. Of course, it is not to earn your salvation, is to show off the love of God. And as we grow in our lives in Christ, it is about ministry, surrounding that which ministered to its life. We are ministering as we are ministered to. Jesus is ministering to us. We are ministering to others. The light of the world became alive in the Word and gave us life for us to live. As you continue this quest and this reading, I'm going to move ahead. I want to get to a particular place. We are drawing your life from Him. You will not wither nor be fruitless. You will be like a tree planted by the river of water. This passage from the Ellen G. White Steps to Christ book is a beautiful biblical metaphor of the purpose of growing in Christ. We have been fed with the river of life that nourishes our roots with the nourishment of salvation in Christ and a relationship with Christ. And naturally we grow. It's what living things do. And day by day, our lives will show that and show how the hands of God use us. A life in Christ is a life of restfulness. So please, warning, warning, warning. It is not for you to emphasize the growing in Christ as a burden to show off. Though we are showing off, the burden is not to show off. The burden is to have a relationship. And in having a relationship, we are showing off. Am I communicating this? Use the words of Ellen G. White. A life in Christ is a life of restfulness. Remember, we are Seventh-day Adventists. What does the seventh day is all about? Is it rest, you said? Is it resting in Christ, you said? Indeed. As Seventh-day Adventists, while we wait for the second coming, we are resting. We are resting in Jesus. We are not working our way for salvation. Growing in Christ means resting in Christ. Restfulness is the result. But it will give us strength. Restfulness does not mean weakness. It does not mean being a wimp. It means being strong in God. Paul in Galatians 2:20, I live yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians 2:20 is the very point of growing in Christ. Seventh-day Adventists believe that we are not stagnant and stuck on simply saying, Christ saved me, which is a beautiful place to be stuck at, but we are not stuck. We are living that out because Christ lives in us. Galatians 2:20. Finish reading chapter 8, going from word to word using a search for the word life. Experience the growing in Christ doctrine through the lenses of reading Steps to Christ chapter 8. Thank you for accepting the invitation. See you in the next lecture.